Nosy parents of teenagers, what do you wish you shouldn't have seen? When we moved house and all the stuff was in the new place, one of the moving guys called me out to double check the receipt, and when we were out of my mom's earshot line he handed me the Weetar pipe that had fallen out of the hidey hole in the back of my desk when they were moving it. What a bro. My mom found my butt plug tail on the bathroom counter. I had washed it and forgot it in there. She was crying laughing as she threw it at me. My son has a towel for a specific private purpose. It needs to be washed. As a kid, it seemed like no matter where you hid sheet, your mother would find it. I had a nice stash of spank mags when I was a young teen, and decided I would hide them in one of my guitar cases. Even behind the guitar. My mother would have absolutely no reason whatsoever to open one of those. She still found them, and acted like she wasn't looking for anything. I'm a parent, so one weekend wife and I are chilling out in bed watching whatever garbage on TV, when our youngest son, 11, comes in and says oldest brother, 13, is looking at porn on his tablet. So we call for oldest son. He denies and denies, of course. So tell him to bring me his tablet. He hasn't learned the art of incognito browsing or clearing history completely. Going through his history. Well, I'll be damned. He is looking at porn. Not just any porn though. Some anime stuff. Some adult raunchy stuff. But the real kicker was the Scooby-Doo porn. Fred ducking Velma. Shaggy ducking Daphne. Velma doing Daphne. etc. So mom leaves the room to let dad and his son talk about this. Starts with the usual. Don't lie. You can't hide this sheet from me if I go through your browsing history. It's okay to masturbate, in private of course. You're growing up. Yada yada yada. Finish the conversation. Give him his tablet back. But as he's walking out the door, I can't but help do my best worst Scooby impression, but Shaggy followed by Zoinks. Jinkies and Raroff found your porn. His face got so red. And I just lost it. I was in tears. Now every so often, when he starts to cop an attitude with us, I just go Zoinks to him. Kicker of it all. Youngest son comes into the room with I was only joking. I didn't know he really was. Edit, corrected Velma. Not a parent, but the only time my mom ever searched my computer history was 10 minutes after I had googled what queefs are. I raised a daughter as a single father. I am not a natural snoop. I try to not be too nosy. The worst part for me was having her around my mom. My mom is more nosy than any 5 people I have ever met. My mom was left alone in my house with just the dog when my daughter was 15. My daughter is now in her mid-20s and I still have not heard the last from my mom about her having 3 different vibrators. And therefore is somehow perverted she hasn't. She lived at home since she left for college at 18. And I'm still hearing about it. Not a parent. But was preteen at the time the internet was starting to get going. My parents saw my search history after I became confused how sex worked in homosexual relationships and googled it. That led to some interesting questions. My mom found a thing saying I was bi and confronted me while crying about it and begging me to tell her why I had turned away from God. 6 years later and I'm still so far in the closet I may as well rule Narnia. Also she found my yaoi stash when I was a duck in Weeblol. Not a parent, but a witness to their finding something they didn't want to see. Work it. Guy had his daughter's computer that was having issues opening some photo application and needed it fixed. As we're going through and checking if it worked yet, opened up and presented an image of his daughter. Naked. Holding a huge dildo. No words were exchanged. He closed the lid and left. Edit. I got quite a few questions about the age of the daughter. And honestly, can't say. He mentioned her being home from college. So I'm assuming 18 plus. Not a parent. This happened a couple years ago when I still lived with my mom and stepdad. My stepsister used to live in my room and it had been nearly a year since she moved out. I had a vibrating dildo that my best friend had bought me as a joke, but not really a joke, For a birthday gift. I used it frequently and I would hide it in the bottom of a drawer in my closet hidden in a hat. My mom decided to snoop and found it but somehow thought it was my stepsister's and kept it. I asked her about it and she was blown away by the fact that I masturbated, but she was going to send the toy in the mail back to my sister without telling her. Now that would have been a disaster. TLDR, my mom almost sent my dildo to my sister in the mail. Update, I texted her about it and she had the typical response like, "Not my daughter." And yes, I did get it back but soon threw it out because the thought of my mom knowing what I use was too much. I'm not a parent, but on my 16th birthday my girlfriend at the time was over and we were in my room watching a movie just chillin'. I went downstairs at a point during the night, leaving the GF in the room to get a drink of water. Whilst downstairs my mother asks me if I had any laundry to be done. This wouldn't be strange for most 16-year-old guys, but I had been doing my own laundry since I was 14 due to my parents regularly being away for days at a time for work. I was confused but just replied no. I did some yesterday. I'm checking anyway. So she did. I got my glass of water and one for the GF and started my path back to my room when two shrill screams come from that direction. I ran to the door. My mother storms out, eyes on the ground, and grumbles, "I'm never going into your ducking room again." I enter the room. Perplexed. Only to find my GF wrapped in a bed sheet on the bed. Her clothes strewn on the ground. She had been sat on the edge of the bed with nothing on whatsoever when my mother walked in. The night was ruined and my mother never entered my room again. I'm sure she regrets being such a nosy fool. Typical not a parent. I was helping my recently turned teen cousin with a PC problem. I know his dad has some controls set, so I did a little snooping to see how effective they were. Apparently the kids discovered futanery and hentai. He likes the classics. Black Bible was searched for a lot. Didn't tell his dad. But I did pull the duck out of my hands. Not a parent. But a snooping child. Found a box of my mom's dildos and lube. In a different drawer. Found a photo of my dad naked in the shower. My dad had died several years prior to my snooping discovery. A friend of mine once set the homepage on his dad's work computer to a porn site. You know, those viruses that automatically set themselves. His dad got greeted with a large woman pleasing herself with a zucchini next time he opened his browser. At work. He was not pleased, but the guy who had to take care of it must have had a good laugh. Edit, to clarify. He did it accidentally. He actually removed the Internet Explorer shortcut to try to hide it. I was cleaning my 7-year-old's room because it was a ducking mess and I was sick of it. I found a collection of apple cores, orange peels and candy wrappers stashed under the bed. Some had been there a long time. Neither of my parents seemed to be nosy. But I have had some interesting moments. Like at one point my dad wanted me to look something on the web and saw I had Medina Arabic on the bookmark tab. And, naturally, his first response is, "Are you trying to join ISIS?" I am just really into languages. Something that apparently my family finds really weird. Edit, wow. This really blew up. At least to my perspective. From 20 karma to 350. I couldn't believe my eyes. Not a parent, but my stepdad tracks not only my phone but also my bank account, so almost everything. He tried to track what I do on the computer, but I'm more tech savvy than he is. Not a parent. Just a dumb methodica. My dad once found porn, huge big digging girls as doggy, as my desktop wallpaper because I thought it would be better to fap that way. My daughter's boyfriend left his condom wrapper in her bathroom trash can. Twice. It was a Magnum. Both times. I'm very glad they are using double protection. She's also on BC and they were both vegans, but goddamn I hate it. Not a parent. Went to take a piss in a stall at school. Found a cell phone on the TP dispenser. It didn't have a lock screen. I thought I would search in the contacts for someone the owner spoke to regularly, mom or whoever, to send them a text. Found your son's phone. It'll be with campus security. As soon as I swiped to unlock, it opened to a Google image search result page for sexy she-males. I wiped the browser history, turned it into security, and went about my day like nothing happened. It was at that moment I realized how numb I was to watch sheet. So I have a bunch of weird sleep issues, and one of them is the ability to hold conversations with people while I am in a deep sleep. I have no memory of the conversations. My mom found out about this when I was a teenager, and apparently she would sneak into my room in the middle of the night and sleep me would dish out all the scoop. Who was having a party? Who I liked? Which of my friends made bad life choices? Everything. She would never punish me for it, but would give advice based on what sleep me confessed. It always confused me on how much she knew about my life. When I'm extra tired or stressed, this comes back, and apparently I have had hilarious conversations with my husband. I have just recently discovered that I passed this trait down to my son. Part of me is tempted to get the scoop from my kid, but another part of me wants to respect his personal space. Not a parent, but I wish my mother hadn't found the letters located in a hidden drawer from my first girlfriend. Getting home one day to find my mother standing there proclaiming my girlfriend to be an utter slut was more insight into my life than I wanted her to have. In fairness to my mother, her judgment was spot on, but at the same time she'd failed to realize that was why I liked her. Okay, but what about the reverse? Because I found my mom's vibrator, bubbler, and stash of weed that she apparently grew in our backyard. Back in high school, my friend Ali's house was right next to our campus. I wasn't allowed to go hang out after school, though no boys were unless her mother was home. Why? Because mom had walked in on a lie giving a guy oral sex in the basement one day. The only reason I actually know this story is because one day I was there with parental supervision, and when mom has to leave for errands, she said, "Well, I wish I could leave you guys here alone." But I guess a lie really blew that chance. I have never seen a teenager turn that red. Not a parent story, but my piece of shit brother-in-law would try to catch me doing shit. My sister is much older, so I'd stay with them sometimes in the summer when I was a kid. He showed me his new computer and then said, "Don't give anyone my AOL password," and just left me alone for a day while they worked. I was 12 with free reign to the internet. He came home with a perverted grin on his fat face. "Did you know I can see what websites you've been to today?" "Oh, I can." He sat down at his computer, fired up the history with a glint in his dead pig eyes, and saw 12 hours of activity. Of me doing two things: reading about Animorphs and Star Trek and chatting about Animorphs and Star Trek. I was not being nosy. Our family shares an Apple Cloud account, and when looking through apps that people had downloaded, I found one about different sex positions. My oldest kid at the time was around 12. Not a parent, but my mom taught me how to wash my own clothes at 6. She honestly hated doing the laundry that much. For my birthday once, I turned down her offer of $100 to instead just do my laundry, adding that it would honestly appeal to me that much. She still wouldn't do it and left the Benjamin in my coat pocket. Being a late bloomer, I took home a girl to meet my parents, and had sex for the first time at 21 in their basement, as many young men do. Not wanting her finding the condom in the garbage can, I emptied the rubber and pocketed it. I then changed clothes so I wouldn't smell like sex. You guessed it. 90 minutes later, I see my mom folding my clothes. "You're doing my laundry for the first time in 15 years, sigh, and you of course checked the pockets." She folded quietly, looking down. "Yes, John Van Heen, I found the condom 8 years ago, and that was, and likely always will be, the last time she did my laundry." Not a parent, but when I was a teenager, my mom, with no suspicion, managed to find my weed, which was inside 2 pairs of socks, inside a small cinch sack, all stuffed into the bottom of my soccer bag with sheet piled on top. To this day she still claims she was just looking for dirty socks. The little boy I tutor gave me his iPad so I could find some music on YouTube to play in the background. Opened the search bar, typed a for whatever song it was. And the first suggestion was a girl's butt close up. How did that get there? My 9-year-old pupil exclaimed. Incredulous. I did not search that. It did not matter that he was the only person in the household with that level of writing capability. I just kept going. Found my music. And didn't tell his very strict mum. Not a parent. But this scenario is kind of the other way around. I found an uncomfortably large vibrator in my mom's room once when I was looking for candy, which she often hoards. Oh. And it wasn't the cheap kind either. They didn't spare any realism when they made that thing. Even worse. I thought it was a flashlight. You can imagine my surprise when the flashlight had veins. But of course the most traumatizing part was when I pressed the button and instead of illuminating the drawer, it vibrated intensely. Took me half an hour to find out how to turn it off. When I was a teen, my dad walked in on me and my GF during sex. She was on top. Dad opened the door and everything paused. We looked at him. He looked at us. After a few moments he said, "Your mom is making cookies and wants to know if you guys want any." No, Dad, we're fine. Okay, then he closes the door. If my door was ever closed, he knocked after that. And he never brought it up. Thanks, Dad. When I was 10, my parents found a jar of lolas that was given to me by a friend. They thought I stole them because I wasn't allowed stuff like that because I was hyper as duck, so I hid them. Next thing you know, my stepdad puts me in the car and attempts to drag me into the police station. Only lesson I learned was that I couldn't trust my parents. Not me, but a family friend was looking through her daughter's phone without her permission. 2 minutes after I told her she shouldn't do that, she found out her daughter had been on a les chat site and burst into tears. Should have minded her own damn business. Not a parent, nor does this involve any of my siblings, but I did find gay porn in a rectory. For non-Catholics, it's where priests live. My Boy Scout troop was connected to my church, and our priest, who is a stand-up guy, asked us to clean out some of the spare bedrooms that weren't occupied anymore. This place was a friggin' mansion, so they needed all the free labor they could get. Digging through one of the closets there, I happened upon a metric sheet ton of gay porn. They weren't magazine though. They were slides. Like old school slides for a Kodak carousel projector. Me being a naive, but not ignorant of how ducked up the church is, 12-year-old at the time, I thought there could potentially be some less than legal porn in the mix. So I stupidly took it upon myself to look at every slide to make sure I didn't have to go to the police. I tossed that sheet in a dumpster and never mentioned it again. Not a parent. And this wasn't exactly with my parents. My uncle. When I was around 9, I accidentally stumbled upon my first porn video at my home. I saved it. And kept going back to it. I also used to spend weekends at my uncle's house. And I always got on the computer before he did, so I'd end up watching it with the volume on. He caught me, but didn't reveal he had until later on when he told my parents that I was looking at dirty stuff. For some reason I had this weird mentality that the next day at school I told the only friend I had what I had seen. She never spoke to me again. Just wanna add, I am a girl. Okay. So I'm not his parent, but I'm over at my gay best friend's house. We were both in our 20s, and he's getting dressed. I'm waiting in his room, and so I start going through his bookcase. I find a sex ed book for kids with an old lady on the front that looks like MRS. Doubtfire. It's basically sex ed taught by your grandma. I'm standing there with my mouth open reading this book and wondering why he even has it. When he walks back into the room, he looks at me all funny and says, "What you reading?" I quickly shove the book back in the case and say the title of another book on the shelf. He just looks at me and says okay, but his face is red all over. I always thought people were born gay. But after that incident I began to wonder if reading such horrific literature at a young age could make someone permanently terrified of women. In high school I bought a pipe for weed. It went missing days afterwards, so naturally I was panicked. I searched the house top to bottom and asked my brother, who was 12, if he had it. His answer was no, and it sent me into a panicked loop of searching house asking brother. I had written it off until a month later when I heard a commotion from my brother's room. My father found the pipe and my brother claimed it was mine. My father stormed down the hall and woke me up with, "Is this your hash pipe?" I had to stifle a laugh. First time I had even heard the word hash used as a drug name, and told him nope. Never seen that before. He went down the hall and proceeded to kick the shit out of my brother for smoking hash and lying. Still to this day I have a smile on my face telling this story. Worst part is I don't think he ever even got to smoke anything out of the pipe. Was just a kleptomaniac. Helped a friend's little brother, 14 at the time, with a computer issue. And found that he didn't clear his browser history at all. Tried to go to ninite.com to get software downloads, my go-to, and the first URL that popped up was a Naruto hentai site. My friend was there. And I asked if maybe we should have a chat with him about how to clear browser history. And his response was nope. If I had to learn the hard way, so will he. We're several years removed from that now. He knows to clear his history. Let my sister use my laptop. Created a folder for her stuff. Pictures and all that. She was always taking pictures. This was before smartphones. Checked the folder for pictures of the dogs, got a bunch of pictures of her vaginal, immediately backed out. Renamed the folder "Don't Open Sister's Vaginal." She found out when my brother borrowed my laptop and saw the folder name. Their actions almost made up for having to see parts of her I wished I hadn't. Not a parent, but a story of something I saw my parent do. I'm about 12 and my best friend is over. We're playing Halo and all that, having fun. We decided to get snow cones and I went to open the door to tell my dad we're going. The snow cone shop was right around the corner, and once I open my door, I see my dad, nude, flail around trying to hide his nether regions. And when he did that, the computer turned around as he hit it. There was porn on it. I immediately closed it and just yelled, "Alright Alan, let's go get snow cones." Alan being the name of my friend.